Before we begin, take a moment to settle in, wherever you are, whatever time it is, whether it's just before bed, a quiet afternoon, or the earliest hours of morning. You're here now. And that's enough. If you're listening with your eyes closed, or from beneath a favorite blanket, welcome. And if you're listening from somewhere far away, we'd love to know. Drop a comment below with the time and place you're tuning in from. Maybe it's the 12 a.m. in Tokyo, or a rainy evening in Glasgow, or sunrise beginning to color the sky in a quiet Midwestern town. Wherever you are, someone else is sipping something warm too. This is a different kind of story. Tonight, we won't race through history or chase timelines and dates. We'll go slowly, softly, through steam rising from a cup, through the gentle scent of broth in a quiet cell, through warm milk in a cabin wrapped in snow, and through a final sip of ale in a seaside tavern only by firelight. This is the history of warm drinks, of how we've held warmth in our hands for centuries, for comfort, for stillness, for love. A history told not in grand events, but in tiny, human moments. Let your shoulders drop, take a deep breath, and let this next hour wrap around you like a soft scarf, like the first sip after a long day. You're safe here. You're warm, and you're exactly where you need to be. Let's begin. It is early morning in the old capital. The world is slow to wake. The streets are still silvered with fog dot, and the birds, even the birds, sing only softly today. A low mist rises over the tiled roofs of the estate, draping everything in a veil of breath and water. Somewhere nearby, a pine tree creaks. Its old limbs move slightly with the damp breeze, not as protest, but as memory. The night's rain still clings to the stepping stones in the garden, turning the edges of moss into tiny mirrors. And inside, a woman sits. She's not old, nor young. She's not famous. Not today. She lives in one of the smaller residences behind the north-facing walls, where the courtiers are fewer, and the days are longer. Her sleeves pull around her as she waits beside a bamboo screen. The lacquered shutters remain closed. The candle in the corner flickers, but doesn't quite reach her face. She has not spoken since waking. She may not speak at all today. That is how she prefers it. She's not alone. There are attendants. A servant moves past her on soft feet, holding a small bronze kettle. Another folds a square of silk, slowly, reverently, but the woman does not give orders. Not yet. Not before the first cup. The kettle is placed carefully beside her. It does not boil. That would be wrong. Instead, the water lets out a whisper, a breath, and a slow plume of steam, fragrant and colorless, rises upward into the cool air of the room. She leans slightly forward. Not enough to speak, not enough to shatter the shape of her stillness, just enough to reach for the small container of powdered tea. This tea is not what you might imagine. It has no ceremony yet. It is not a performance, nor an aesthetic. It has not been refined into art. This is centuries before the ritualized tea ceremony, before wabi-sabi and formal choreography. No. This tea, this bowl, is for something quieter than that. It is for warmth, for waking, for sitting in one's skin before the world intrudes. The powder is green, green like wet grass, green like willow leaves crushed in a hand. It clings to the spoon, if reluctant to let go. Into the bowl it goes, just a little. This is rare, after all. The leaves were brought from the mainland by monks, pressed and packed highly, carried through ports and mountain passes and customs officials and scroll-bearing scribes. What she has is precious, but she does not hold it. She uses it gently, without fear. The hot water is poured slowly. No clatter, No splash. No steam cloud dot. Just the hush of heat meeting powder dot, and then the whisk. A tiny bamboo thing. Hollow. Handmade. She moves it without looking. Back and forth. Side to side. A practiced movement from memory and stillness. The tea begins to froth. Not like milk. Not like foam. But like the skin of a quiet pond after a rain, when the drops leave tiny bubbles that ripple for a breath, and then disappear. When it is ready, she lifts the bowl, not like a chalice, not like a noble woman. She lifts it the way one lifts a stone that has sat in sunlight. With both hands, with attention, with softness, and she drinks. The tea is bitter, not unpleasant, but sharp. Grassy, green, the taste of morning that hasn't decided whether it will be kind or difficult. It fills her mouth. It touches the backs of her teeth, the root of her tongue, and it sinks slowly into the rest of her. She does not speak. She does not swallow quickly. She lets the warmth move. There are scrolls near her, unopened. There are letters she has not answered. A brush she might pick up later. A poem that began to form in the last dream before waking. But all of that can wait. Right now, it is just the tea, the bowl in her hands, the warmth that moves up into her face and down into her chest. Outside, the rain begins again. It doesn't sound like a storm, more like a memory, like someone tapping gently at the sleeve of the world to ask if it's time yet. The Morse DAOKENS. The stones glisten. Somewhere, a crane lifts one leg and goes still again. And inside, she drinks her second sip. The cup is halfway gone. The candle is almost out, but she doesn't mind. She watches the steam as it curls and vanishes. She watches her breath join it. When the bowl is empty, she holds it for a long time, not in reluctance, not in sadness, but in quiet reverence for what has passed. The tea is finished, but the warmth is not. She sets the bowl back on the lacquered tray. Someone will take it away later. For now, she lets her hands rest in her lap. Outside, the rain thickens. Somewhere in the house, footsteps begin again. A courtier, a cousin, a page boy looking for a letter. The day begins in its slow, slippered way, but for her, it has already begun. She drank it, sip by sip, bitter, quiet, warm. It was not meant to be a revolution. It came quietly, as so many things do, wrapped in cloth, carried by hand. The boat that brought it was wooden and narrow, its sail patched in places. It crossed the sea in a season of calm, skimming low along the southern coast. Inside, there were no warriors, no noblemen, only monks, thin, robed, worn from travel, and with them a small parcel of leaves. Not leaves as you might know them now, not dry, curled things in paper envelopes. These had been steamed, pressed, shaped into dense, tight cakes. They had traveled far, from the mountain temples of Tang China, through stone monasteries with gardens trimmed in gravel, where bells rang for meditation and not for power. The monks brought other things too, sutras, ink, silence, but it was the tea that would take root most deeply. At first, it was a medicine, a tonic, a way to stay awake through long nights of chanting. When the body grew tired, the bitterness of the brew cut through sleep like a knife through silk. They would grind the cakes on stones, fine powder, add hot water from a clay vessel, whisk, drink. In the mountain temples of Japan, the ritual became a rhythm, not for show, but for stillness. Not everyone understood it. Courtiers still sipped fragrant infusions from porcelain cups. Nobles preferred plum wine or sake warmed in gold-rimmed pitchers. But in the shadows of stone lanterns, in rooms with open doors and cold floors, Monks sat and drank green bitterness in silence. One monk, you would not know his name unless you searched, planted seeds brought from the mainland. He believed the leaves would grow better here, that the soil on this side of the sea would shape the taste into something new. He was right. The hillside garden, where he sowed the seeds, was often shrouded in mist, and the leaves that grew there were darker, sharper, more alive. Word spread, not quickly, but surely, from monk to student, from student to scribe, from scribe to patron. And then to the warriors. But that is a story for later. For now, imagine the mountain, the wet soil beneath a sandal, the hush of breath in a robe of coarse cloth, a kettle suspended above coals. And the first sip of something foreign, now familiar, sharp, green, alive, a taste that would outlast empires. But for now, it was just a drink in a monk's hand, steam curling into morning fog. Before the guests arrive, the room is empty, not quiet, not exactly, but waiting. The air holds stillness like a bowl holds water. And in the alcove, the utensils rest, not displayed, not presented, simply placed, as if they've always been. There, the tray is wood, lacquered dark and deep, like rain pulled in the hollow of a tree. Its corners are worn smooth by the curve of fingers that have lifted it again and again, not roughly, not gently, but knowingly. The tray does not announce itself. It serves. On it sits the bowl. CHAWAN. Not all bowls are alike. Some are round as moons. Others squat like stones in the garden, shaped by hands that listen to clay. Some are cracked and repaired with gold. Others are flawless, but less beloved. This one is humble, pale glaze, soft speckling. A lip that invites both hand and mouth. Its bottom is thick to hold heat. Its walls are thin to speak of balance. The bowl remembers every hand that has held it, not by name, but by warmth. Beside it, the whisk, chastened. It looks delicate, but it isn't. Carved from a single stalk of bamboo, shaved, split, curled into breath-like threads. Its form is fragile, but its purpose is strength, to stir, to awaken, to create. The soft froth that lifts the tea from bitterness into cloud. The whisk does not tire. Though the handle may darken, though the threads may fray, it serves, again and again, like the bell that rings without question. Nearby, the scoop, chishaku, slender as a finger, curved at the end, like a crescent moon. It holds the powder as a mother holds a child, not tightly, not loosely, but just enough. The scoop is not for measuring, not precisely. It is for offering. And the caddy, natsum, or chair, the container of tea. Sometimes tall and wrapped in silk, sometimes small and plain and dark as plum bark. Within it, green dust, fine as breath, enough for one bowl, maybe two. But these are not mere tools. They are more than their shapes, more than their use. They are pauses. They are transitions. They are the visible edges of an invisible act. Each waits, not to be admired, but to be used. And after use are cleaned, wiped, returned. Not to their box, but to their moment. There is no ceremony without these things, but there is no meaning without the hands that move them, and the heart that stills enough to notice them. A bowl is only a bowl until it is lifted with both hands. A scoop is only wood until it carries the green. A whisk is only bamboo until it sings in water. And so, the utensils wait in the corner of the room, where shadows fall like silk, and the light is always soft. They do not speak, but they remember. And when the first guest bows, and the host lifts the tray, They begin again. As they always have. As they always will. It is evening in the hills outside the capital. The pines are dark now, blue-black silhouettes on the ridgeline. A thin mist clings to the moss up the garden's edge, and somewhere in the low shrubs, a nightingale lifts its throat, not to sing, but to breathe. The path is narrow, lit by one lantern, maybe two, just enough for the guests to see the stones beneath their feet, just enough to make the rest of the world disappear. They do not speak, not because they are forbidden, but because there is nothing to say. Each step is a kind of thought, each footfall a kind of remembering. At the gate, they remove their sandals. They bow slightly as the door opens sideways, not tall enough to allow pride, and they enter, not into a hall, not into a palace, but into a room barely the size of a breath, the tea room. The Chishitsu, not a room of grandeur, but of presence. The ceiling is low. The walls are simple wood and paper, framed by silence. In the corner, a small hearth glows gently, its charcoal arranged not for heat alone, but for the slow unfolding of time. On one wall hangs a scroll. It is not elaborate, a single brushstroke, perhaps. A poem fragment, a Zen phrase. Today, it says, Ichigo Ichii, one time, one meeting. A reminder that this moment, this exact combination of people, place, air, and silence, will never come again. Beneath the scroll, one flower, placed in a thin bamboo vase. It is neither blooming nor fading. It is simply alive. The host enters without announcement. He kneels, bows, and begins to prepare. No words are exchanged. The language here is movement, attention, care. He lifts the bamboo ladle, pours hot water into the waiting bowl, wipes the rim, dries the scoop, places the tools with a deliberateness that is not ceremony, but understanding. These gestures have been shaped by years. They carry the memory of hands that moved before. Samurai hands, monk hands, poet hands, all learning, slowly, how to let go of all but the essential. And now, he reaches for the tea. Powdered green, still vibrant in the candlelight. He scoops it, 1, 2 measures, and lets it fall into the bowl like fine sand on silk. The water follows. Not boiling, not loud, just hot enough to awaken. And then the whisk. It moves in practice silence, a figure-8 rhythm, a breathing rhythm, until the surface of the tea shimmers softly, not with bubbles, but with stillness disturbed, and then resolved. He lifts the bowl, turns it slightly, bows his head, and offers it. The first guest receives it with both hands, not as a gift, not as a performance, but as a moment they now share. The guest turns the bowl 3 times, not to admire it, but to align it, to drink, not from the most beautiful side, but the humblest. And then a sip. And then a pause. The tea is warm, green, slightly bitter, with the depth of earth and mountain in its taste. The guest does not speak. He only breathes. He places the bowl down again, and the host cleans it. The next bowl is prepared for the next guest, and the next. Each repetition is not sameness, but refinement. A deepening of quiet, a layering of warmth and presence. No one is performing, and yet everything matters. Outside, the garden is dim. The bamboo rustles lightly, as if in approval. A drop of dew falls from the eaves and lands on a stone with a sound like punctuation. Inside, the fire glows low. The kettle sings. A breath rises and falls. And then the utensils are cleaned. Not quickly, not for sanitation, but as an act of gratitude. The bowl is wiped and held again. The whisk is rinsed and tapped once against the stand. The scoop is returned to its place, wood against wood. The room feels both emptier and fuller than before. No one says goodbye. There is only bowing and stepping backward and lifting the edge of the doorway before ducking into the dusk outside. The mist is thick again. A candle burns behind a paper window. Somewhere on the hill, a fox crosses the path unseen. The guests walk home slowly. Their hearts are quiet, their thoughts distant. Not in the past, not in the future, but somewhere between the sip and the setting of the bowl, the warmth remains. Not in the tea, but in the silence they now carry with them. The host returns inside. He closes the sliding door. He pours the last of the water into the ashes and kneels for a moment beside the hearth. Not in prayer, not in fatigue, but simply to be still, because the tea is gone. The guests are gone, but the moment lingers, as it always does, just a little longer than expected, until even that dissolves into breath. There is a certain kind of silence that only exists in the desert. It is not the silence of emptiness, but of still presence, a quiet that settles like a warm shawl across the shoulders, unhurried and undisturbed. It is the kind of quiet that knows how to wait. In the soft grey before dawn, a man stirs within a stone shelter carved from a cliff's edge. His name has not been remembered. He is not famous, nor does he seek to be. He is one of many Christian hermits who fled the noise of the late Roman world to find peace among rocks, sky, and sand. He rises barefoot onto a stone floor that still holds the cool of night. His tunic, woven of flax, is rough, but worn soft over time. It hangs loosely from his frame, a frame thinned not by illness or age, but by choice. The hermit has chosen a life of simplicity, silence, and hunger. He steps outside into the hush. The desert is not yet hot. A slight wind nudges the acacia branches. Somewhere, a bird calls once and goes quiet. The horizon is just beginning to pale. He does not speak. He hasn't spoken in days. This is not a vow, exactly, just a pattern. A rhythm of being alone. His first task is to gather fuel. There are no trees here, only scattered, bleached twigs carried by the wind. He selects a few, brushing off dust, and returns to a small hollow in the rock near his shelter. There, he arranges the twigs carefully and lights them with a piece of flint. The sparks catch slowly. He waits patiently, blowing with gentle breath until a thin flame rises. With the fire lit, he fills a clay pot with water, drawn from a distant well the day before. The water is faintly brackish, touched with minerals, but safe to drink. Into the pot, he pours a small handful of dried lentils. No salt, no oil, no herbs. Just legumes and water, set on the fire to soften. There is nothing urgent about this. The fire crackles softly. The lentils will take time. While they cook, he kneels on the stone beside the hearth, his hands folded. He does not need to read scripture, hymns, psalms. These live inside him, worn smooth by repetition. His lips move, but no sound emerges. It is a conversation he does not need to hear aloud. When the stew is ready, he lifts the pot with a wrapped hand. The scent is barely there, warm and earthy. He pours the contents into a single bowl, made from coarse pottery, and carries it inside. There is no table, no chair. He sits cross-legged on the ground, holding the bowl with both hands. The first spoonful is taken slowly, not because it's hot, not because he is unsure, but because this is not simply eating. It is part of prayer. The lentils are plain, soft, mildly bitter, but they are enough. Each spoonful is a gesture of humility, a way of saying yes to being alive. He does not count bites. He does not chew loudly. Between spoonfuls, he rests the spoon gently across the bowl's rim. He swallows carefully. There is time. To eat alone here is not a sad thing. It is the way things should be. No need to speak, no need to perform. He finishes the bowl, wipes it with a bit of cloth, and sets it down. There is no dessert. There is no second course. The meal is done, and in its place, silence returns. For the rest of the day, he will not eat again. Not because he is punishing himself, but because the meal has already served its purpose. It was enough. He returns to the fire and scatters the ash. The flame dies without protest outside. The sun is rising, slowly, steadily, without fanfare. The desert begins to warm. The shadows retreat into corners. His feet press into hot sand. He walks in circles near the cliff face, not to go anywhere, but to let the body move. In his hunger, he becomes lighter, more still. His mind drifts not to food, but to memory of meals shared long ago, of his mother's bread, of olives, in the shade of stone walls. But these are distant. They come and go like birds on the wind. Occasionally, he may find a wild herb or a cracked date dropped by the wind. Small gifts, never hoarded. These two are eaten quietly, with thanks. The hours pass. He may nap in the midday heat, or sit with eyes half closed, watching ants cross the threshold of his cell. He does not expect visitors, though sometimes, once a week, a younger monk from a distant monastery brings him dried figs, more lentils, or a little oil in a cork jar. They do not speak much, a nod, a small blessing. Then silence again. The sun begins to fall behind the cliffs. The wind rises in long, whispering currents. The rocks grow cool once more. He does not cook at night. The body does not need more. Hunger has become a familiar friend, quiet, soft-footed, always nearby. In the dark, he lies on a mat of woven reeds, facing the opening of the cell. Stars emerge slowly in the sky, distant, steady, uninterested in the world below. He does not sleep quickly. He watches the sky and thinks not of what he lacks, but what he has not needed. One bowl, one meal, one day. Enough. And the night passes in silence once more. The streets of Kyoto narrow as the sun sets, fading from golden haze to pale blue shadows between wooden shutters and clay-tiled rooftops. Somewhere beyond the bamboo groves and incense-thick temples, a low bell tolls, days ending. In a quiet corner of the city, just behind a mossy wall and a row of plum trees, sits a boarding house for students. Its walls are plain, its courtyard swept clean. Lanterns are being lit, one by one, and their glow flickers against the sliding paper doors. Inside, a young man kneels on a woven tatami mat. He's 18, maybe 19, and dressed in a simple cotton kimono. A notebook lies open before him, brush marks drying across the paper. His calligraphy is careful, deliberate. He's studying classical poetry, the kind that demands both precision and silence. He pauses, sets down the brush. The sky is now dark. It is time to eat. The meal is already waiting. Outside his door, one of the caretakers, a woman in her 50s, quiet and quick-footed, has left a tray. She does not knock. She does not speak. The tray holds a small bowl of rice, a cup of miso soup, a few pickled radish slices, and a piece of grilled mackerel, dark and glistening. He bows lightly, even though no one is watching, and brings the tray inside. There is no dining room, no table set for conversation. Each student eats alone in his room, by design, not by neglect. In Edo period Japan, especially among those studying Confucian classics or Buddhist texts, eating was often done in silence. Words were to be saved for poetry, not scattered in idle chatter. Supper was part of one's discipline, an act of attention, not indulgence. He kneels again, adjusts his posture, and lifts the rice bowl. He does not rush. The rice is slightly sweet, steamed perfectly. He chews slowly. The soup is warm, deep with the taste of seaweed and fermented bean. The mackerel flakes easily beneath his chopsticks. He eats all of it, but without haste. Between bites, he pauses to breathe. The only sounds are the soft hiss of another student's kettle in a nearby room, the clink of lacquer bowls, the rustle of sleeves. He does not look out the window. He does not read while eating. He simply eats. This is not asceticism. He's not a monk. But there is a shared value here. A belief that food is not a moment to escape study, but to be studied itself. The temperature, the grain, the texture of pickled plum against the tongue. Even the silence is part of the learning. The meal is modest, but it is not meager. His family sends a stipend from the countryside, enough for tuition, room, and rice. Occasionally, when exam scores are high, he permits himself a luxury, a persimmon, a bit of eel, or sweet red bean mochi from a shop in Gion. But not tonight. Tonight is ordinary, and ordinary is enough. When the rice is gone, and the tray is cleared, he rinses his mouth with warm water and returns to his notes. The brush strokes resume, quieter now, slower. The light of the lamp falls in a soft oval around him, casting long shadows across the mat. In a few rooms down, another student is softly reciting Chinese verses under his breath. In another, someone is already asleep. The boarding house settles into stillness. The caretaker collects empty trays silently, her step soft against the wood. There is no curfew, but most will rest early. The next day will begin before dawn, with more study, more silence, more bowls of rice and steam. To eat alone here is not lonely. It is structure. It is respect. It is the shape of a life built around the quiet pursuit of knowledge. As the lamp burns lower, the student sits still for a while. His stomach is full, but not heavy. His mind is alert. Somewhere beyond the shutters, a nightingale sings. He closes the notebook, extinguishes the flame, and kneels once more, this time in prayer, not to any god in particular, but to the calm rhythm of the day, to the food, to the silence, to the words still waiting to be learned. And in that peace, sleep comes gently. There is mud everywhere, not just underfoot, but packed into seams, under fingernails, between teeth. The trenches are shallow rivers of it, thick, dark, cold. It sticks to the boots and to the sole. In this part of the Western Front, the sky has been grey for 5 days straight. It is the colour of wet wool, stretched from horizon to horizon. The air smells of damp canvas, metal, and gunpowder residue. Even on quiet days, inside a dugout reinforced with timber and sandbags, a young soldier hunches over a tin of food. He is 21, though he looks older now. His face is pale, his eyes smudged with sleeplessness. His greatcoat is stiff with dried mud. He wears it even when resting. It's the only warmth he has. His mess tin sits in his lap. Inside, a chunk of hard biscuit has been soaked in lukewarm tea, softening slowly. Beside it, half a tin of corned beef, dense, salty, faintly metallic. He eats with a dull spoon, wiping it now and then on his sleeve. There is no dining table, no hot kitchen, no conversation. Even among comrades, most men eat alone here, not by distance, but by silence. The war has made them inward. Talk is often too costly. Eyes stay low, bites are small. They eat not because they're hungry, but because the body must carry on. Bread comes in slabs, thick, dark loaves, baked behind the lines and transported 4 miles. By the time it reaches them, it's stale, but it's bread, it keeps. Sometimes it comes with a smear of jam. If the supply lorry hasn't gotten stuck in the mud. He breaks a corner off and chews slowly. The texture is dense, slightly sour, not pleasant, but grounding. A rat scurries past his boot. He doesn't flinch. They are constant now, fat and bold, attracted by crumbs and worse. He has learned to ignore them, unless they get too close. Outside the dugout, shell fire rumbles faintly in the distance. A reminder that even while eating, one is not quite safe. Still, this trench is quiet for now. The fighting will resume, perhaps tonight, perhaps tomorrow. There are rations in his pack, a can of bully beef, some army biscuits, a tablet of condensed soup that never really dissolves. Sometimes he has a cigarette after supper, if he remembers to ration them. There is no fire, no warmth beyond body heat, and yet, somehow, this meal is comfort. He remembers dinners at home, the warm scent of meat pies, his mother's strong tea, the clatter of forks and voices. They feel impossibly far now. Like something read in a book, not lived. The war has shrunk the world down to a tin bowl and a trench dot once. Early in his posting, he tried to eat with the others, to talk as they chewed, share stories, joke about the food. But the jokes dried up, the laughter became forced. Now, he sits slightly apart, leaning against the wall of the dugout, spoon in hand, listening to the soft scratch of another man writing a letter by candlelight. Eating is a quiet act, a small anchor. The food may be tasteless, but the moment is necessary. It marks time. It says, I am still here. I am still alive. He finished the last of the tea-soaked biscuit and scrapes the tin with care. Not a drop is wasted. He wipes the spoon again, then wraps it in cloth and tucks it into his coat pocket. Outside, a cold wind rises through the trench, lifting the canvas flaps and bringing the scent of mud and smoke. The rats are quieter now. The men stir restlessly, some coughing, some sleeping with eyes half open. He pulls his coat tighter, leans his head back against the wooden wall, and closes his eyes. To eat alone here is not about solitude. It is about survival. It is a moment of stillness between chaos, a spoon, a mouthful, a breath, and in that breath, there is a kind of prayer. No words, just hope. Moscow, late 1970s. The hallway is dim, the wallpaper faded to the color of old tea. The linoleum creaks beneath soft slippers, and the scent in the air is a mixture of boiled cabbage, dish soap, and something fried hours ago. It's evening in a communal apartment, a kommunalka, on the 4th floor of a Khrushchevka building. Behind each door lives a separate family. Behind each stove, a negotiation. Behind each meal, silence. In one small room at the end of the corridor, a woman sits alone at a narrow table. She is 63, a former librarian. Her name is Yelena Ivanovna, though no one calls her that anymore. Most just say Bobalina, if they say anything at all. She lives alone in this room, once shared with her late husband. The room is 5 meters by 3, and it contains everything she owns: a bed, a wardrobe, a bookshelf, a kettle, and a table pushed up against the wall beneath a calendar showing Lake by Colin Summer. Dinner is ready. On the table, a single chipped plate, a stainless steel spoon, and a shallow bowl of kosher buckwheat porridge, buttered, salted. Beside it, a slice of black bread, dense and fragrant. A cup of weak tea sits nearby, steaming faintly. She adjusts her glasses. They slide down her nose. She places a folded napkin on her lap. She picks up the spoon. There is no one to share it with tonight. There is no radio playing, only the muffled sound of someone arguing down the hall, the scrape of pans in the shared kitchen, the occasional groan of pipes. She eats slowly, one bite at a time. To be alone in this way is not unusual. Communal living in the Soviet Union often meant crowded solitude, families crammed together in partitioned rooms, yet each one guarding its own space, its own pot, its own rhythm. Eating was deeply personal. If you had food, you ate it. If you didn't, you tried not to look too hungry. Yelena eats not with bitterness, but with practice. She's done this 4 years. She knows how to stretch a ration. She knows where the better groats are sold, and when to line up for butter. The kosher is good tonight, nutty, warm, with just enough salt. It sticks to the ribs. It reminds her of her mother, who stirred it with a wooden spoon and whispered lullabies while it cooked. She dips her bread into the tea. The tea is weak, almost just tinted water, but it is hot. And that's something. She doesn't count the bites. She doesn't hurry. Each spoonful brings a small pause, a moment to remember, a moment to swallow the silence. Above her, the light bulb hums faintly. Outside the window, the snow begins to fall, softly, evenly, as if trying not to make a sound. The streetlight flickers, then steadies. Somewhere, a trolleybus rolls past. She finishes the bowl, wipes it clean with the last of the bread, sets the spoon down gently on the plate. A small act of grace. Then she rises, carries the plate to a basin in the corner, and washes it with a sliver of grey soap. She dries it with a cloth she embroidered decades ago, faded roses stitched in pink thread. Then she places the plate back in the cupboard, the spoon beside it. That is her whole set. One plate, one spoon, one life. Back at the table, she sits, a while longer, watching the steam drift from the tea. She does not drink the last of it yet. That's for after, a kind of dessert. It will go cold if she forgets. She rarely forgets to eat alone. In this place, is both quiet and defiant. It is a way of saying, I am still here. I can feed myself. I can find small comforts. The apartment grows quieter. The kitchen settles. The footsteps in the hallway fade. She drinks the tea. And for a moment, everything is enough. The light is not quite light yet. It's that time before the sun commits to the day, when the sky is still the soft grey of brushed silk, and the air feels like it hasn't been touched in centuries. In the corner of a quiet villa, the paper doors remain closed. Inside, everything is still. Tatami beneath bare feet, ink drying in the well. A small hearth, barely glowing, and a single pot of water beginning to warm. This is the first cup of the day, not one taken in haste or distraction, but one approached like a ritual. And it has always been this way, long before you were born, before clocks ticked or traffic stirred. People sat quietly in the mornings and waited for water to boil. There's something grounding about it, something soft. You don't need to move quickly. In fact, you shouldn't. There's no place to be but here. The day will come. In time, the world will knock soon enough. But right now, there's only this slow unfolding, this breath, this waiting. Outside the shoji screen, a sparrow flutters along the bamboo. A few brown leaves skip across the stones in the garden, tracing paths from memory. The mist hasn't lifted, yet it floats low, clinging to the earth like a blanket, not yet folded. Inside, you sit, still wrapped in a cotton robe, hands resting on knees, eyes half-lidded. And the pot begins to whisper, first faintly, like a memory surfacing, then more urgently. The edges of the iron warm to the touch, though you don't reach out yet. The cup you'll use isn't ornate, just a humble ceramic bowl with the faintest crackle in the glaze. A thing of quiet beauty, the kind you only notice when you're not looking for it. It's not for show, not for guests, just for you, just for this. When you lift it, there's a heaviness to it that feels like a kind of honesty. It has weight. It reminds you that you're still here. And you are. You are here, in the pause before everything, in the hush that lives just on the edge of morning. This cup isn't a luxury. It's an anchor. It tethers you to the moment, reminds you that it's okay not to hurry, that slowness can be sacred, that the way a kettle hums just before boiling can be more profound than any sermon. There's a kind of intimacy in this quiet. Not loneliness. No, not that. But solitude with purpose. A kind of solitude that allows you to hear things most people miss. The creak of wood in the beams, the soft settling of dust, the faint murmur of your own breath. The world isn't silent. It's just gentle right now. And in that gentleness, you can think without thinking, feel without reacting, exist without explaining. You pour slowly. The steam rises, curling and twisting like calligraphy in the air. It dances briefly, then vanishes. The smell is faint, green, earthy, delicate, the kind of scent that only comes alive when you pay attention. And you are paying attention now. You are not multitasking. You are not checking messages or glancing at a clock. You are here, fully, as you lift the cup to your lips. You feel the warmth pass through the ceramic and into your fingertips. That warmth spreads across your palms, into your wrists, up your arms. And then the first sip. It's not dramatic. It doesn't overwhelm. It simply is. A quiet pulse of heat and flavor, settling on your tongue, a note of bitterness, of clarity, of the earth itself. You swallow, and the warmth deepens. You are not hungry. You are not full. You are simply present. The room remains unchanged. The fire hasn't grown. The sun hasn't yet risen. But something in you is shifted. Something small, something tender. You feel it in your chest, the way the warmth spreads outward, as though your ribs have opened slightly to let the day in. This first cup is not about caffeine or hydration. It's about orientation, about how you greet the world, about how you return to yourself after a long night of dreams or silence or sorrow. There's a kind of truth in this moment that's hard to find elsewhere. The kind of truth that isn't loud or demanding. It just waits, like steam, for you to notice it. And maybe that's the point. That warmth has always been here, waiting. It doesn't need to be impressive. It doesn't need to last. It just needs to be enough. Enough to carry you to the next moment. Enough to soften the edges of the morning. Enough to remind you that not everything needs fixing, solving, or improving. The second sip is even quieter, as though the cup is settling in with you, matching your rhythm. You lean back slightly, let your shoulders drop. Let your thoughts wander like the mist in the garden. There's nothing pressing, nothing urgent. Just the sound of breath and the weight of the cup in your hand. You think of others who've done this before you. Monks in distant mountains, farmers before the plough, travelers warming their hands in roadside inns, parents cradling cups in kitchens before children wake, all of them bound by this shared ritual, all of them pausing, just for a moment, to let the warmth seep in. This small act of stillness is older than nations, older than books, older than the words you're thinking now, and now it passes, as all things do. It leaves behind something essential, not a memory, exactly, but a trace. A sense of having touched something real, something quiet, something that asked nothing of you, but your presence. Eventually, the cup will empty. The fire will die down. The sun will rise above the rooftops, and the birds will grow louder. But you'll carry this moment with you, tucked beneath your skin, nestled in your breath. A quiet warmth that moves with you, even when you forget it's there. The first cup of the day is finished. And so, in a way, is the night. You set the bowl down slowly, with care. The sound of ceramic meeting wood echoes lightly, a punctuation mark to the morning. The day waits beyond the threshold, but you no longer dread it. You are ready, not because of anything you did, but because you allowed yourself to begin in stillness. You rise, not with urgency, but with calm. You fold your robe tighter around you, step toward the window, and watch the mist finally lift. There's no applause, no grand signal, just the quiet knowing. You drank something warm. You gave yourself a moment, and somehow, that was enough. You step inside, and the warmth meets you like an old friend. It wraps around your shoulders gently, not like a rush, but a low, steady heat that's been building for hours. Outside, the wind has gathered in corners, tracing frost over the panes, dusting the stone steps with snow. But here, the world moves slower. The kind of slow that makes you breathe deeper. Even before you know you're doing it. The kitchen is worn, not shabby, not forgotten, just lived in. The wood of the table is smoothed with years of elbows and fingertips. The copper kettle hangs above the hearth, its belly catching firelight in dull gleams. Herbs hang in small bundles near the window. Sage, thyme, lavender, tied with twine, and turned slightly golden by time. You move without rush. Every part of what you're about to do matters. There's no measuring cup, no electric timer, no multitasking. Just the soft clink of ceramic, the creak of the drawer, the hush of fabric. You reach for your apron. Today's warmth will come from broth, simple, earthy, honest, A warmth that feels like it rises from within. You begin with the bones, not perfect ones, not from a store, but gathered from yesterday's roast. The marrow is still clinging inside, quiet and rich. You don't need to speak to them. They already know their role. You place them gently in the pot, listening to the slight crackle as they meet the base. It's not a loud sound, just a whisper of what's to come. Next comes water, not boiling, not cold, just the right temperature to coax out what the bones remember. You pour slowly, and the pot welcomes it like an exhale. A small swirl rises, cloudy at first, then clear. The fire underneath doesn't blaze, it simmers. That's the secret to broth. You don't force it. You don't demand its flavor. You let it offer itself, slowly, in time. Now, the vegetables. A knob of onion. No need to dice, just a gentle crush. Garlic, with the skin still on, smudged slightly by the soil it once grew in. A stick of celery, bent and cracked. A bit of carrot, old but sweet. You don't need a recipe. You don't need precision. Only care. You drop them into the pot, one by one. The broth doesn't protest. It sighs, accepts. The surface stirs slightly, as if recognizing familiar friends. You add a few peppercorns, a bay leaf, maybe a bit of parsley, if you have it, but nothing too much. This isn't the time for extravagance. This is a quiet ritual, a small act of building warmth from what remains. The scent arrives slowly, first earthy, then a little sharp, then deep, like the color of autumn leaves or the sound of low thunder far away. You sit nearby and watch. There is nothing else to do. No button to press, no shortcut, just waiting. The steam curls upward and finds your cheeks. You let it touch your face. It softens the cold in your nose, the stiffness in your neck. You don't move much, just breathe, just wait. In another place, another time. Someone else is doing the same. Maybe it's a grandmother stirring miso with a wooden paddle in a Kyoto kitchen. Maybe it's a shepherd warming milk in a tin pot in the Carpathians. Maybe it's a sailor heating water over a lantern in the hold of a wooden ship. They are all here with you, in a way, all tending to the quiet task of preparing something warm. Not for a feast, not for display, just for life, just to feel human again. The broth shifts color. It deepens, from pale to gold, from gold to amber. It takes on weight, not in texture, but in presence. You can smell the patience in it. The hours it has learned to hold. You taste it once, with a wooden spoon, never metal. The broth touches your tongue and disappears, leaving warmth behind. Not too salty, not too rich, just right. You add nothing more. There's a point when a thing is enough, when the work has been done, and your role is simply to receive it. You ladle it into a clay bowl. The steam billows, the bowl glows faintly with heat. You wrap your hands around it and feel the temperature meet your skin, not like touching fire, but like soaking into the edges of you. You pause. You do not drink yet. You close your eyes for a moment and listen to the sound of the fire. The creaking wood, the small, occasional pop from the pot. The sound of warmth, becoming real. Then, finally, a sip, not much, just enough to notice. The taste is familiar, but also new, because you're paying attention. It coats the back of your throat gently, travels down slowly. You feel it land in your chest, like a stone dropped into still water, not heavy, but sure. The ingredients weren't remarkable. You didn't use anything rare. But somehow, together, in heat and time and care, they became something that steadies you. Something more than food. This is how warmth is made. Not in grand gestures, not in speed, but in intention, in stillness, in knowing that what you put into the pot will eventually return to you, changed. Not brighter, not louder, just deeper. You sit with your bowl. You don't speak. You don't need to. The fire burns low. The snow continues outside, somewhere, far away, Bells ring in a chapel. A dog barks once and falls quiet again. But here, in this room, there is only broth, a bowl, and the kind of silence that doesn't ask anything of you, only that you stay, only that you notice, only that you hold. This warmth, while it's here, the snow has not stopped. It moves sideways now, brushing against the window with the slow insistence of a lullaby. Outside, the forest folds in on itself, the pine branches heavy with white, the path long since vanished, but inside, the world is hushed, nothing moves except the candle's flame, swaying gently as though breathing with you. You're wrapped in wool, a shawl pulled around your shoulders, your legs tucked under a thick blanket. The walls are wooden and soft with age. The fire has settled into coals. It no longer roars, it glows. You sit by it, knees drawn up slightly, listening to the sound of heat. There's a cup in your hand, wooden, polished smooth by years of touch. Steam rises from it, steady and slow. The drink inside is warm milk. Just milk, with a touch of honey, and maybe a sliver of cinnamon bark steeped long enough to whisper but not shout. The milk has thickened slightly near the surface, like a quiet fog. You haven't sipped yet. You're still in the part of the moment that belongs only to potential. That rare hush before taste. Before sensation, you breathe in. The scent is soft, not sharp, not perfumed, just warm, slightly sweet. Familiar in a way that needs no explanation. A scent that feels like being remembered. And then you drink. The milk touches your lips, like silk, barely a pressure. You let it in slowly, and your tongue falls around it, not to analyze, but to welcome. It doesn't ask you to describe it. It doesn't demand critique. It simply says, here I am. I'm warm. I'm safe. I'm yours. The heat moves downward, through your chest, into your belly. A bloom of comfort, not the thrill of caffeine, not the punch of spice, just warmth, deep, even, old as time. And you close your eyes, not to escape, but to stay here more fully, to keep the world small, just for now, just this cup, this fire, this breath. You feel the curve of the cup in your hand. You run your thumb along the rim, feeling the tiny notch where the wood was once joined. Someone carved this cup with care, long ago. Someone touched it with the same kind of attention you're giving it now. You take another sip. Slower this time. You can taste the honey now, not as sweetness, but as memory. A hum at the back of your throat, a warmth that doesn't speak in words but in feeling. You do not rush. There is no need. The snow outside reminds you, everything in its time. Nothing hurried. The world doesn't end if you go slowly. Sometimes, it begins there. Savoring is not about indulgence. It's not about pleasure or spectacle. It's about presence. About allowing something, a sip, a sound, a silence, to stretch fully into its shape without interrupting. To say, I see you, I feel you, I'm with you. And so, you sit with the cup, not to finish it, not to accomplish, but to be with it. You remember other times, maybe, other drinks, a bowl of broth on a sick day, a spoonful of soup in someone else's kitchen, a thermos of coffee on a long walk, a shared flask on a winter hillside. All of them moments of warmth meeting need. But this one is just for you. You're not sick. You're not lost. You're not in company. You're not in need. You're simply here. And the drink is here too. There is comfort in that. A companionship without language. A kind of quiet holding. You shift in your chair slightly. The blanket slips, then settles again. The candle flickers. A log pops in the fire. But mostly, the silence holds. You sip again. The milk is cooler now. Not cold, not yet, but changed. And so are you. This is what it means to savor. To stay with something as it evolves. To be with it not just in its perfect state, but as it ages, softens, Releases. You do not mourn the heat. You do not chase it, you stay. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is stay. With a moment, with ourselves. With a drink that is no longer hot, but still full of warmth. You run your finger around the inside of the cup. Catch a droplet of milk. Taste it from your thumb. A tiny act, almost childlike. But not silly, not wasteful, just intimate. Like saying, I don't need more. I need this. Just this. And then, the last sip. It's not dramatic. It doesn't signal anything. It just happens, and then it's done. The cup is empty. You hold it for a moment longer. Feel the weight of absence, not in grief, just in acknowledgement that you had something. And now you've let it go. The candle still burns. The fire still breathes. Outside, the snow continues, erasing footprints and softening roofs, but you feel steadier now, not because anything changed, but because you noticed something. You gave the moment your full attention. You were here. And that is the heart of savoring. Not pleasure, not luxury, but presence, to taste, to feel, to know you're alive. In this breath, in this room, in this quiet, you set the cup down gently. No clatter, no end scene. Just the hush of wood meeting wood. You pull the blanket tighter, lean back, close your eyes, and carry the warmth with you. It doesn't fade. Not really. It lingers, it settles. It waits for you to return. And you will, when you're ready, when you need nothing more than a cup, and a moment, and the kind of silence that fills you up. The wind has softened, not stilled, exactly, but no longer howling. It slips past the shuttered windows like a sigh through teeth. The sea, just beyond the rocky path, no longer crashes. It breathes, slow and tidal, like something resting, after a long anger. Inside the tavern, most candles have burned low. Their wax has puddled and cooled, chairs are empty now. The laughter, the footfalls, the stories, they've all been spoken. Only a few embers hold court in the hearth, glowing like coals in the belly of the night. You're still here. You haven't left. You don't quite want to. There's a mug between your hands, pewter, cool around the lip, still warm toward the base. What's inside is almost gone. A last measure of ale, brewed dark and gently spiced, warmed by the fire earlier, not boiling, just enough to invite your chest to loosen. It's not about drinking anymore. You're not thirsty. You're not cold. You're not trying to fill any hunger. You're just here. This is the part after the sip, after the moment. The part where everything quiets down, where the body remembers, where the spirit curls inward like a cat before sleep. The taste still lingers, a ghost of barley and clove, a trace of something fermented and kind. You breathe out slowly. The flavor is in your mouth, in your throat, in the space behind your eyes. Not strong, not sharp, just present. You look around the room, eyes soft with fatigue. The wooden walls glow faintly, golden with age. A scarf hangs forgotten over the back of a chair. A bit of bread sits on a plate, untouched. The floor creaks with memory. The room is still full of life, even as it rests. This is the moment the warmth begins to change form. It's no longer in the cup. It's in you. In your limbs, your breath, the way your shoulders have lowered since you sat down. You hadn't noticed how tense you were, how tight the world had wrapped around your ribs. But now, you feel it, the soft unraveling. The loosening of things you didn't even realize you were gripping. You lean back slightly, careful not to disturb the table. You cradle the mug, though there's nothing left to drink. It's not about the liquid anymore. It's about the memory of heat, the echo of care, the residue of a moment given your full attention. A thought passes through you, quiet and unformed. Not a question, not a conclusion. Just the awareness that you needed this. Not the drink, not the tavern, not even the quiet, but the space to be with yourself, gently. That's what a warm cup can offer, sometimes. A way back to yourself. Not with answers, not with advice, but with softness. A warm beverage doesn't fix anything, but it companionizes your moment. It says, I see you, I'll sit with you. I'll warm the inside of your chest, while the outside of your life takes its time. You breathe in again, noticing how it feels now, how full your lungs seem, how much easier it is to be here. You place the mug down softly. It makes no sound, just settles on the wood like it belongs there, as if the table was always waiting for it to return. You look out the small window. The wind has moved inland. The sea is quiet. Somewhere, a gull cries once, then vanishes into the dark. You think of the others, all those who have sat like this. Monks sipping barley tea in candlelight, soldiers cradling chipped mugs near battlefield fires, children cupping bowls of broth in illness, elders pouring hot water over roots in small clay pots, sailors, lovers, widows, wanderers. Every generation has known this feeling, the pause that a warm cup creates, a brief untying, a silence you don't need to fill. You rise slowly, joints murmuring under the weight of stillness. You place the mug near the hearth, where someone will find it tomorrow. You wrap your scarf around your neck, not too tight. You nod to the room, even though no one is left. You step into the night. And now, the warmth moves with you, not as steam, not as flavor, but as memory, stitched into your breath, your bones, your pace. The stars are out now. The sea's silver and endless. Your footsteps crunch on the path. But nothing feels cold. Not yet. Not really. You've carried the warmth with you. That's the gift of a drink savored in stillness. It doesn't stay in the cup. It stays in you. Even after you've forgotten the taste. Even after the cup has been washed, dried, and shelved. It remains. Like a song that hums just under silence. Like a hand resting on your back, saying, you made it through the day. Like a fire that never quite goes out. And so the cup is empty. The night is quiet. And you are still here. You've traveled far without moving. Across time, across weather, across quiet kitchens, unforgotten firesides. Through mornings that began in mist and evenings that ended in steam. Through the simple miracle of something warm in your hands. Each drink was more than flavor, more than fuel. It was a way of pausing, of noticing, of returning. And now, you've returned to yourself. Maybe your eyes are heavy now. Maybe your breath has deepened. Maybe the room around you has softened at the edges. Let it. Let yourself steep a little longer in this stillness. There's nothing else to do. No more pages, no more sips. Just warmth, lingering. Let the memory of the cup stay with you. Not as a craving, but as a comfort, a quiet reminder that there is always a way to be gentle with your body, with your thoughts, with the moment. So close your eyes now. If you haven't already, let the quiet carry you. And know this, you were here, you slowed down, you stayed. And that was enough. Good night.